It all started 10 years ago when I was 13 years old. I stood outside beside my school's parking lot on a sunny autumn afternoon, waiting for my friend Alex's dad to pick me up. I was looking forward to see Alex again. It'd be the first time we hung out in a while, so naturally I was anxiously awaiting the arrival of his dad's dark red Camry with the unmistakable dent on the front. It was quite a sight. It looked as if someone had pressed their hand into the hood at full force, and one would expect the hood to bend a little under this circumstance, but there was literally a perfect handprint engraved into it, as if it were memory foam. Alex's dad never told us how he got such an odd dent on his car. In fact, he froze up every time we brought it up. I was excited to ride in the absurd car. Normally, Alex's mom picked us up when we planned on hanging out, but she was away on a business trip, so I was going to ride in his dad's car for the first time. After a few minutes of swaying back and forth and staring at the nearly empty lot, I finally spotted the car, and with it, the hand-shaped dent. Alex's dad pulled up next to me, and I hopped in the back. "Hey there, kiddo," he said in his familiar, cheery voice. "Hi, Mr. Kelly. Looking forward to seeing Alex?" "Yeah, sure am." "Glad to hear it. Well, buckle up, we'll get going." I buckled myself in, and Alex's dad started driving. As he approached the exit, a computerized voice spoke. "Turn left in approximately 20 feet. It was a GPS mounted on the windshield by a built-in suction cup. I always thought they were pretty neat devices, especially the more sophisticated ones with built-in voices. However, I couldn't help but notice that it was leading Alex's dad in the wrong direction. His mom had always turned right when she left the school. I didn't want him to end up lost, so I told him, "Hey, Mr. Kelly? What's up, kiddo? GPS is leading you the wrong way. We're supposed to turn right at this street." "Wrong way?" he responded, suddenly sounding very disoriented. "Why, that's impossible." "Well, Alex's mom always goes the other way." He fell silent for a moment, and as he came up to the turn, he suddenly slammed on the brakes. I shot forward, surprised. It was the last thing I expected him to do. After a few seconds, he spoke in a very serious tone. "Drew has given me directions, you see, and I must follow them. They are the right way. They're the only way." I was speechless and surprised at his sudden change of mood. He promptly resumed driving, turning left as the GPS, or Drew as he called it, had said. After that, Drew began leading him in all sorts of strange directions. At one point, he drove down a small dirt road covered in fallen red leaves, only to leave it the same way. After about an hour of this wild goose chase, he finally ended up at Alex's house. I was furious with his dad, but I didn't say anything. I didn't want to fight him. I was just happy to finally be at Alex's house. Now, about 9 years passed without any more weird encounters with Alex's dad. I made sure that I never got picked up by him again. This proved difficult for a while since his mother got progressively more and more busy with work. We didn't hang out nearly as often, but it was worth it. Anyway, by this point in my life, I had my own car, and I was able to see Alex more often. Despite this, I still didn't see him all that much, especially with the huge workload that apparently came with being a college senior. We chatted on Skype pretty often, but seldom met in person. We had planned to take a road trip together over winter break, which was coming up shortly and I couldn't wait. Then, on the day before winter break, something devastating happened. Alex's dad killed himself. It was completely out of nowhere. His job was going well, and from what I understood, his marriage was stable. I couldn't imagine why he would do himself in out of the blue. But of course, the trip was canceled. Alex was devastated, and I did my best to comfort him for the next several weeks. But nothing seemed to help. One day in March, Alex told me that he and his mother were giving away his father's possessions in an effort to move on with their lives and to stop living in anguish. He asked me if I wanted anything of his. I couldn't think of anything at the moment, but figured it wouldn't do any harm to see what he had. I showed up at his house the following day, and he led me up to the attic where his father's stuff was being stored. I squatted so as not to touch the fiberglass with my head and to look around. There was still a lot of stuff they hadn't gotten rid of, and none of it seemed too interesting to me. But then I saw something that looked oddly familiar in a small pile of junk. It was the old GPS his father had used. I picked it up and examined it. It was outdated and covered in dust, but was still in relatively good condition. I figured it might be nice to have a GPS for my car, even though it was old and didn't always work, as I recall from the irritating drive with the old man. So I asked Alex if I could keep it. He said sure. After that, we hung out for a while, and it was nice to see him again. I said my goodbyes to Alex and his widowed mother and got in my car with the GPS in my pocket. I took it out and examined it. It had a generic-looking logo at the bottom, reading Destination Drew. I couldn't help but wonder what DRU stood for, and then I realized something. Drew. Alex's dad had called the GPS by the name of Drew. I thought he had named it or something because he was weird like that, but it was actually called Drew. I pressed the on button, and surprisingly, it still had some battery life remaining. A little jingle played as the logo appeared on the screen, followed by a menu screen. It read, "Welcome back, Mr. Kelly," and then in the bottom corner, "Not you?" ? It seemed weird to me that it operated like a social network or something. What does it matter who's using it? But I made a new account all the same. When I did, it started speaking to me in its computerized voice. "Why, hello there, Mr., Mrs., or Miss Collins. I'm the Directive Route Unit, or DREW for short. I'm the latest and greatest in GPS technology. I'll be helping you with every step of the way, so buckle up, enjoy the ride, and most importantly, be safe." I couldn't help but chuckle a little. It sounded like an ad for a 1980s computer. It was the corniest thing I'd ever heard. After that little number, courtesy of Drew, I fixed it to my windshield and punched in my home address to see if it would plot the quickest route, or if it would malfunction like before. To my surprise, it picked the correct destination, and I drove home, chuckling at its corny 80s computer voice at every turn. I pulled into my driveway. "You have arrived." The next morning was Sunday, and I was famished. I had finished all my homework last night, and I had no plans, so I figured I'd get breakfast at a diner or something. I got in my car and punched in breakfast on Drew. I got a number of results, most of which were restaurants, but one result in particular intrigued me. It read, "How to make a breakfast burrito." Curious, I selected this option to see what it entailed. It mapped out a route to my local grocery store. Go 5 miles down Resin Rock Avenue. I wasn't entirely sure where it was going with this, but I followed its directions all the same. When I arrived at the grocery store, Drew said something that made me do a double take. "Remove me from the car and take me into the store with you." I couldn't believe my ears. Just how many phrases was this thing programmed with? I took it into the store with me, and to my further amazement, it started directing me to various aisles. "Go to aisle 4, and pick out some organic eggs. And pretty soon I had all the ingredients required to make a breakfast burrito. I checked out and drove home, following the same route that Drew had suggested. When I got home, it had me take it into the house, and then it started giving me directions on how to prepare the burrito. And after a while, I had a very delicious looking breakfast burrito. You have arrived. Now, it was the most delicious breakfast I had eaten in a while, and it was all thanks to Drew. It was April now, and for the past few weeks, I continued fiddling with Drew. He showed me all sorts of neat things. How to build a kite, how to fix my cable, how to bake a cake, and so much more. I didn't even care what I did. Doing it was just so much fun. I knew that as long as I followed Drew's directions, I could achieve anything. Felt as if he were not a machine, but a conscious being with a very high intellect. The final exam was coming up pretty soon, and I knew Drew would help me pass it with flying colors. I punched in college final, and Drew started searching. He came up with a number of results, one of them being how to pass your final exam. Naturally, I selected it, eager to hear his electronic words of wisdom. Write down the following notes on a note card and bring it in for the test. He shortly displayed a message. ACDBCABCDBADBBCBABCDBCAD. Let me tell you, it went on for a while, and at first I was confused. They didn't look like helpful notes at all, but then I realized it. Drew wanted me to cheat. I was extremely apprehensive of taking his advice this time, but then I remembered what he had said when I first inherited him. I will be helping you every step of the way. Drew was more than a mere machine. He was my mentor and my friend. He had never steered me wrong before, so I decided to listen to his advice and bring the cheat sheet. Finals week came shortly, and I drove up to my college, anxious about getting found out. As I pulled up into the college parking lot, Drew gave me further instructions. When entering the testing room, make sure to sit in the back left corner. I entered the testing room with nothing but a pencil and my cheat sheet. I promptly claimed the seat in the back left corner. I could see that Drew had once again given me good directions. The desk was partially hidden behind a pillar with a piece of gum stuck to it at eye level. I stuck the cheat sheet on the gum and began the test. As I marked up all the tests, I made sure to put the wrong answers for some questions to avoid getting a suspiciously perfect grade. After I finished marking it up, I waited around until I saw other students start to leave. It was pretty boring, but Julie, a girl I had a crush on, was sitting just a few seats away. I spent the remaining time watching her take the test and daydreaming about us together. I finally handed in my test confident in a good score. But still, I couldn't help but feel a little ashamed about cheating. I left the school and entered my car to the familiar sound of Drew's voice. You have arrived. I aced the final and graduating with a promising degree. I applied for a high-paying job with the help of Drew, and of course, I got hired. I had stopped feeling guilty about cheating by now, for I had a promising future and couldn't have been much happier. The one thing missing from my life was a girlfriend. It had been a couple of years since I was in a relationship, and I was starting to feel lonely. I decided to ask Drew if he could help me. I punched in "girl of my dreams," and he came up with one result, reading, "How to win Julie's heart." I got excited. I had wanted to date Julie for months. I selected the option and perked my ears up for Drew's flawless directions. Go 5 miles down Resin Rock Avenue. I started driving, wondering where Drew would lead me. To my surprise, we ended up at Alex's house. Invite Alex to go drinking at the Oak Valley Bar. I'd never heard of this bar and couldn't imagine how taking Alex there would help me win Julie's heart. But I didn't question it. Drew knew what he was doing. He always knew. I knocked on Alex's door and there he was, surprised to see me. I invited him to go drinking, like Drew said, and conveniently enough, he had no plans that night, so he obliged. Alex asked me to turn off Drew because he thought he was annoying. I told him no way, he didn't know Drew like I did. Without his guidance, I would be lost. Alex cupped his hands over his ears so as not to hear him. After a 20-minute drive, we arrived at the bar. It was a cheap bar with little to no atmosphere, and all the customers looked sketchy. Staticky radio played smooth jazz throughout the interior. Alex and I sat at the bar and ordered a few beers. After we had a couple of drinks, I noticed Alex getting distracted by something. I looked where he was looking and saw a very attractive woman sitting at the end of the bar. Alex decided to go ask her out, and they really hit it off. After Alex briefly introduced me to the woman, the two of them left the bar and started looking for a cab. I couldn't believe it. Drew was supposed to find me a girlfriend, not Alex, and I left the bar furious at him. What the hell, Drew? You're supposed to help me. Stand by for further instruction. What do you mean, stand by? How is any of this helping me? Stand by for further instruction. Now, for days, that was the only response I got out of him. I tried to have faith in it, but he was being so damn difficult. And then, when I was just about ready to throw him away, he gave me a new objective. Go 5 miles down Resin Rock Avenue. I left my house, eager to finally have a clear destination again, and Drew led me to the grocery store. Go in and pretend to shop. I entered the store, grabbed a cart, and started walking down some random aisles. I felt a little stupid and my mind told me I should stop doing it, but Drew told me to. Then I trust him more. Down one of the aisles, I saw a familiar-looking woman, and when she turned around, I realized it was Julie. She looked at me and my heart skipped a beat. She walked over and greeted me in a somewhat sad voice. I asked her what was the matter, and she told me that a guy she liked was dating someone else, and that she felt unloved. Now this was it. This was my big chance to win her over. I hugged her and she hugged back, and I was so happy to be holding her in my arms, even for just a few seconds. And when it was over, I was reluctant to let go. After that, I wasted no time and finally asked her out. She said sure, my heart skipped another beat. We hugged again, and I couldn't help but wonder who it was that she liked, so I asked her, and the response I got sent shivers down my spine. Alex. You see, now it all made sense to me. Drew had led me to hook up the man who Julie liked with another woman, so that she would date me. I felt sick to my stomach with guilt, and I finally had the girl of my dreams, but it was only because I had unknowingly tricked her. After planning a date the following weekend, we said our goodbyes. When I got to my car, I was ready to pass out. Drew's voice was normally so soothing, but I cringed with guilt as he spoke the familiar phrase. You have arrived. Now, a few weeks went by and I didn't feel any less guilty about what I had done. Julie liked me, but still had feelings for Alex, and it pained me to see her so unhappy. I decided that enough was enough, and I had to set things right. I told Julie I was going on a business trip, and I didn't know when I'd be back. I passionately kissed her goodbye, knowing very well that it would be our last. I went into my car and punched in, "Getting Julie and Alex together." Drew found one result, and I promptly selected it. He started giving me directions. "Go 5 miles down Resin Rock Avenue." Drew had me driving for a long time. It must have been hours, and before I knew it, I was out of state. I didn't know where he was going with this. I never did, but I knew that whatever it was, it wouldn't work. It always worked. By nightfall, I was deep into the woods, driving down a long dirt road, and finally, after what must have been an hour, Drew had me stop the car in front of an old rotting cabin beside the road. Enter the cabin. I hesitated. The cabin didn't look safe at all, like it could collapse at any moment. But I knew there was no other way. If there were, Drew would have said so. I grabbed the small flashlight from the glove compartment, got out of my car, and walked up to the cabin. I held my flashlight to it. It had once been painted, but now only a few spots of white remained on the old, decomposing logs. The ground was covered in what appeared to be snow. Upon aiming my light at my feet, I saw that there were little chips of paint that had peeled away from the cabin. I had to stop examining the cabin. It was time to enter it. I was scared, but I knew Drew would protect me. I grabbed the rusty door handle and turned it a little. It wasn't locked. I pulled it open and was instantly met with a festering pool of darkness. I instantly, almost instinctively, shined my light through the dense black, afraid of what I might see. To my relief, there was nothing particularly morbid about the cabin. It was just some old wallpaper peeling from the walls, a dusty hardwood floor, and a cracked ceiling. There was some old furniture, a dark green couch and a dresser with a lamp, but nothing else, not even any doors. This was the only room. I found it strange and a little unnerving. I mean, who in their right mind would live in such a minimal cabin? I guess that's why it was abandoned. "So, Drew, what now?" I got no response, and then I realized that I had forgotten to bring him in the cabin with me. Feeling foolish, I turned to the front door. Just as I had grabbed the rusted handle, I heard in the back of my head, clear as day, "Open the top drawer of the dresser." I dropped my flashlight, startled. Had Drew just spoken to me? But how? I left him in my car. I thought for a moment that I might be imagining it, but considering what Drew had been capable of thus far, it didn't seem far off to think he could speak to me through my mind. And he repeated himself, "Open the top drawer of the dresser." Yeah, it had to be him. I'd recognize that tacky 80s computer voice anywhere, and yet his voice seemed different. It no longer sounded quite like a computer. Rather, it sounded disturbingly human. He repeated himself once more, but this time louder. "Open the top drawer of the dresser." What the hell? So I picked up my flashlight and trekked over to the dresser. With each step, the hardwood floor creaked beneath me. I grabbed the handle of the top drawer of the dresser, only to find that it was stuck. I tried shaking it, but it still wouldn't budge. I put the flashlight in my mouth so I could use both hands. And finally, I pulled on it with all my might, and the drawer shot out from the dresser and I fell back, clasping it with my hands. I heard something clanking around in the drawer, probably what Drew wanted me to get. The flashlight had fallen out of my mouth, and when it hit the ground, it had turned off. Stupid cheap flashlight. I felt around for it, and as soon as I found it, I turned it on and aimed it at the contents of the drawer. And what I saw confused me. It was a gun. a 9mm pistol. Drew? How will this help me get Julie with Alex? Head back to the car and wait further instructions. I left the cabin and entered my car, pistol in hand. Even though I was back with Drew, I still heard his instructions through my mind. Make a U-turn and go 30 miles down. But, Drew, what am I supposed to do with this gun? Murder Alex's girlfriend. Hell, I froze up. Drew, I can't. That's not... Make a U-turn and go 30 miles down. He continued barking orders at me. Make a U-turn and go 30 miles down. No, Drew, I'm not going through with that. I could never live with that kind of guilt. Make a U-turn and go 30 miles down. Murder Alex's girlfriend. No! I opened the front door and dropped the gun to the ground. Then I pulled Drew from my windshield, stepped out of my car, and threw him deep into the woods. I got back in my car and turned it on. The headlights illuminated the barren road. I floored it. Drew had told me to make a U-turn and go back, so I drove in the direction my car had been facing. I didn't care how long it would take me to get back. I just needed to break free from his orders. I had to slow down. As much as I wanted to go faster, I had to slow down, lest I risk a fatal car crash on a dirt road miles from civilization. As the road curved from side to side, so did I with it. The swaying was almost relaxing, and I was able to calm myself down a little. But then, I saw something that made my heart sink. The cabin. It was that same exact cabin. I stopped my car in disbelief and looked at it. How the hell was this even possible? I didn't take any turns. Heck, there were no turns to take. It was just one long dirt road. Turning back, I saw something gleaming out of the corner of my eye, and it came from the passenger seat. I turned to look, and I was horrified to see the same gun from before. Now make a U-turn and go 30 miles down. Murder Alex's girlfriend. I rolled down my window and threw out the gun once more. I started driving again, this time much faster. I didn't care about safety anymore. I just wanted to get away from that forest, and Drew. The road was somehow different this time. I came to a fork. I slammed on the brakes, both startled and relieved. I turned right, hoping it would lead me deeper into the woods. And as I anxiously zoomed down the dirt road, just barely illuminated by my headlights, I thought I saw a silhouette of a person walking beside the road. I slammed on the brakes again, and I got out of the car. "Help! Is anyone there?" But there was no response. I got back into my car and I drove on. After a few minutes, I saw something terrible. It made me sick to my stomach. The cabin. This dreadful sight was once again followed by Drew's demands. Make a U-turn and go 30 miles down. Murder Alex's girlfriend. And there it was once again, the shiny pistol in the passenger seat. I screamed madly. I didn't even bother to open the door this time. I threw the gun straight through the window. The shattering glass masked the sound of Drew barking orders. Murder Alex's girlfriend. I was on the verge of tears, and once again I headed straight down the road, hoping that somehow I could escape this nightmare. Such a stupid decision. It had failed me twice now, but I didn't care. I just wanted it all to stop. As I drove down the altering, somehow redundant road, I saw the same silhouette from before. It was no longer walking beside the road. It was adamantly standing right in the middle of it. I slammed on the brakes, startled. And as I stared at the thing, now illuminated by my headlights, I shuddered. I was completely terrified. My headlights did nothing to disturb the silhouette. It was literally a jet black humanoid. I'm not even exaggerating in the least. Its coloration was unnaturally solid. It had no texture. It was just smooth, jet black, without a hint of gray. And although it looked human, it had this strange, somewhat polygonal shape to it, as if it were not entirely human, or not at all. I heard a low buzzing sound that gradually started getting louder. The noise was coming from this thing's face. I looked in horror as two sinister, red glassy eyes began shining dimly. And as the noise grew louder, its eyes grew brighter. I wanted to turn the hell around and flee from the thing. But I couldn't move. No outside force was stopping me. I was just so thoroughly frightened that I couldn't fucking move. And then the thing took a step closer, its eyes beaming right at me. It took another step, and then another, and by the time it was standing right in front of my car, I was squinting from the intensity of its glowing eyes. It raised its left hand and slammed it down on the hood of my car. The whole car suddenly got unbearably hot. It was as if the seats were on fire. Screaming, I tried to open the door, but it wouldn't budge, so I tried to climb out through the broken window. But I couldn't fit through, no matter how hard I tried. By now, I had several glass shards of glass lodged into my face and arms, but it was nothing compared to the horrible burning sensation. I couldn't escape. All I could do was sit there, crying in agony. This went on for hours, just me cowering in pain, and that thing with its palm firmly stuck to my car as its red eyes beamed down at me. And then, it suddenly just stopped. The pain, albeit the glass shards, had stopped. The thing still had its hand on my car, and it made a sound like it was going to say something. And then, I have given you directions, and you must follow them. They are the right way. They are the only way. I gasped with surprise. Was this thing Drew? I couldn't be sure, but I knew it was associated with him somehow. It just had to be. But those were the words of Drew nonetheless, ringing in my mind. His voice was different now. It sounded as if he were speaking in 3 variations of his voice simultaneously. One in his normal voice, one low, and one high. Hell, it gave me a splitting headache. The thing in front of my car disappeared abruptly. It literally just wasn't there all of a sudden. I took several deep breaths, from both pain and exhaustion. The sun was coming up now, and I could see outside without the headlights. And I noticed on the hood of my car a handprint left right where the thing had touched it. I trembled with fear, suddenly remembering the strange handprint engraved in Alex's dad's car. I understood everything now. Alex's dad was under the command of Drew. That's why he had taken such a calculated route that one day. He had been Drew's prisoner. And now, I was. I made a U-turn past the cabin once more and drove slowly out of the woods, sobbing. When I came home, Julie was hysterical. She had me taken to the emergency room, where I told them I was mugged during a business trip. Thankfully, they bought it. I had left the GPS itself in the woods, but Drew didn't seem to care. He never made me go back to get it. He could just as well give me orders through my mind anyways. He had been barking orders at me for the past week now, arranging for the murderous event to take place. His voice no longer had that cheesy 80s computer charm. He was always speaking in that triple-pitched voice now, and it was maddening as hell. I won't go into details how he arranged the murder. Just trust me in that it was a very elaborate setup. Eventually, it was time to put the plan into action. I met with Alex's girlfriend in a dark alley. "So you're Alex's friend, right? The one I'm supposed to meet?" I nodded my head. "Cool, so when is Alex getting here?" "Pretty soon." A few minutes went by. The woman turned to look down one side of the alley. "Now is your chance. Do it." I lifted the gun from my pocket, terrified at what I was about to do, but much more terrified about what Drew might have done to me otherwise. I shut my eyes tightly and pulled the trigger. Bang. My hands trembled, and I felt sick to my stomach. "Now leave. Return to your house." I did as I was told. After a few more days, I broke up with Julie. Naturally, she was pretty devastated, but once Drew had made arrangements for her and Alex to meet, she couldn't have been happier. Alex was still mourning the loss of his deceased girlfriend, and he was lonely and vulnerable enough to be seduced by a pretty woman like Julie. The two of them were officially a couple now. Hip hip frickin' ray. After all that suffering and agony, Drew's mission was finally accomplished. You have arrived. I never did get over the guilt. The only bright side to it all was my freedom of Drew. The infernal GPS was now deep in the woods, and so long as I never searched for answers again from it, I was safe. Or so I thought. A few months passed, and I'd all forgotten about the dark deed. I was suffering from a severe depression and taking several medications in a desperate effort to heal myself. But nothing worked. I quit my job and just sat around my house all day. I had some money saved up, so I knew I would be alright for a while. Not that I cared. One morning when I was making some instant coffee, I heard the last thing I wanted to hear. Go back to the woods and find me. I screamed. The horrible voice brought back with it my horrible memories in more detail than I had imagined them in a while, and then it spoke again. Go back to the woods and find me. I trembled with fear. Did you hear me? Yes, Drew. Go back to the woods and find me. But why? I thought I was done with all this. I don't want any more. I must have control over someone, and right now that someone is you. Unless you want to feel my wrath once more, go back to the woods and find me. I got into my car, crying hysterically. The drive was long and uneventful. Drew didn't speak. He knew that I knew the way. I arrived at the cabin by sunset and stepped out of my car. It took me a while for me to find the GPS. I remembered the general area I threw it in, but it was autumn now, and the ground was shrouded in leaves. And after a while, I finally found it. Enter a destination. I was surprised that Drew was giving me a choice at all. Surprised, but not at all excited. I knew that whatever task I entered would involve some sinister undertaking. Then I suddenly thought of something I wanted. Something I wanted more than anything in the world. Something I would gladly do anything for. Freedom. Freedom from that goddamn GPS. And so that's what I punched in. Freedom. No results. I sat there amongst the rotted leaves and dead branches, completely devastated. I started crying more hysterically than ever. Teardrops literally poured from my face, and one of them fell onto the surface of the GPS and snaked its way into a small seam around the border. I heard a buzzing noise from inside of it, followed by a quiet pop. It started smoking a little, and the screen faded in and out. Could it be? Was Drew really broken? I'd hoped so. I hoped to God that he was, but alas, I heard his voice. Oh my. I raised an eyebrow. Hell, it didn't sound like the sinister voice he had been using recently. It sounded like his voice, the way it used to be. No, it wasn't exactly like his voice. It sounded more sincere than ever. Mr. Collins, I'm so very sorry for everything I've done to you. I was taken aback. I mean, was this some sort of ruse? Or had that single tear actually changed Drew? When your tears soaked into my circuits, it snapped me out of my madness. Drew sounded completely serious, and for some reason, despite all he had done to me, I believed him. The omniscient little gizmo had malfunctioned, or maybe he was malfunctioning all along, and my tear had fixed him. I wasn't sure, nor did I really care, but I was immensely happy. Can you ever forgive me? Drew literally sounded as if he were about to cry himself. I was silent for a long while, until I reached my decision. Yes, Drew, I can. I held him in my arms as if I were hugging him. Tell me, Drew, will I ever find true happiness again? I'll conduct a search. One moment, please. I'm sorry, but it seems that none of the results will lead you to happiness. Oh, okay. I see. Yes, you will never truly be happy in life again. It's all my fault, and I'm so terribly sorry. And that's when I realized it. I would never truly be happy in life. But maybe, just maybe. Drew, I want to put an end to my misery. What would be the quickest way? Drew was silent for a while. Go into the cabin and open the bottom drawer of the dresser. I did so. The bottom drawer was hard to open, much like the top, but eventually got it to budge. And inside there was another pistol, fully loaded. I walked back outside with the pistol in my hand, smiling. I turned to face Drew on the ground. So long, Drew. So long, Mr. Collins. I aimed the gun at my head and pulled the trigger. I fell back in a downward spiral. I could feel myself slipping away. And the last thing I heard was the faint, soothing sound of Drew's voice. You have arrived.